Good morning and welcome to Free Advice Friday. My name is Keri Barnum for New Shelves Books. We're here to talk about the business of being an author, publishing, marketing, anything in between. You're welcome to join us live any Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern by visiting newshelves.com/FAF, where you can register for our live Zoom. You can also email in questions to info@newshelves.com and catch the replays over on YouTube, which is just New Shelves Books on our YouTube channel. So we do have some questions, both live as well as questions that were emailed in. We're going to get started with. The first question from Denise is about reviews, specifically reviews on Amazon. And the question is there any way that foreign reviews or reviews that are international, UK, Canada, Australia, can be added to the Amazon.com or Amazon.us or the Amazon US platform? And unfortunately, the answer is no. So if you have a book on Amazon, you may have noticed that your reviews aren't always the same on every Amazon platform. So you might be on Amazon.com and have 150 reviews. And then you go to Amazon Canada and you've got like 127 reviews. Some of them are the same, but maybe not all of them. Or you might go to the UK website and there's a different number there. I don't really know. I don't think anyone really knows how Amazon decides exactly which reviews to put on which platform. And sometimes they cross, like sometimes UK reviews, if it's a UK reviewer, it'll still show up on .com. Sometimes it won't. And vice versa. Sometimes the .com reviewers don't show up on UK or Canada. And unfortunately, there's no way to transfer those over. That's something that Amazon's bots and their algorithms and their systems do and decide. There's no way to ask them to sync all reviews, or I'm sure you could ask them, but they won't do it. So unfortunately, the answer to that is no. And also, I don't know why or how they make those decisions other than that it is an automatic bot kind of deciding that. So I'm sorry, I didn't have better news for you, but at least now you know and you won't be bugging yourself for it. Let's see. Is Amazon changing their parameters for ads? I've had one for a year that was working well, but it just stopped. I'm currently doing a new one, but it's in review. So Amazon's parameters have not changed. They've made plenty of updates though. So I will say that Amazon ads are constantly kind of adjusting to algorithms and requirements in terms of service. So that certainly has updated, but their parameters specifically haven't changed. If you had a ad that was running and then expired, so a lot of times we'll put a end date on our ad. If it ends, then you would have to restart that ad, or as you said, you're starting a new ad that's in review. And what will happen sometimes with an ad is that it takes a while to warm up. So if you had an ad that was working well for an entire year and then you start a new ad, it won't necessarily jump to the same level right away. It may take a while to kind of sync up and start working well. Pretty often, it'll take anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks to do that. So you may see that even if an ad stops, like say it was set to end on April 1st and it ends on April 1st and you start it again April 6th, you may still see a little bit of a lag where it's starting to kind of reconnect. So if that's the case, give it a little bit of time and keep on checking on that ad. If it's something different and I misunderstood, just let me know and I'll try to help. See, I just self-published a book on KDP Publishing and want to see about getting my book in bookstores one day. The book is called Drive with Purpose. I pulled over to type this question, but now I'm driving. Well, drive safely, and I'm glad you pulled over. And thank you for joining us, even on the go. So as far as getting your book into bookstores, the first question I ask when someone says that they publish through KDP is, did you use your own ISBN or did you accept Amazon's free ISBN? And the reason why it matters is because if you used your own ISBN, you can then upload that book with the same ISBN, everything the same. You can upload it to Ingram Spark. And Ingram Spark will get your book into the Ingram wholesale system where retailers buy books. So that actually gets it into that system. And then retailers would expect that you set a 40% retail discount, which means setting a 55% discount at Ingram Spark. And most of the time they require a book to be returnable. So you don't have the option of getting this kind of distribution through KDP specifically. You would have to have your own ISBN and go to Ingram Spark. If you use the free ISBN from KDP, the reason why you can't use it over on Ingram Spark is you don't have the rights to it. KDP does. So you can't then take it to Ingram Spark. KDP does have a program called expanded distribution that you can opt into, and they will get your book into the Ingram Spark system for Ingram Wholesale. However, it is under their name. Booksellers can see it's published by Amazon, and Amazon's making some type of profit from it. And also, they set the discount at a 25%, which most bookstores won't touch. It's short of what they expect, which is that 40%. So it really does matter on if you use your own ISBN and if you're in KDP exclusively, or if your print book is also available from Ingram Spark and the Ingram wholesale system. So that would be the first step. And from there, if the book is in Ingram, it is at a full trade discount, that 40%, and it is returnable. Then you just start pitching to bookstores. It's really smart to start close to home where you have a local presence, or if you went to college somewhere, something where you have a personal connection, so that you can share that with the store so that they know, number one, you're familiar with the store, and number two, that there's a reason to expect that you might have some type of audience in the area. Best way is always to email them first. They are busy people, so emailing a pitch letter with a one sheet, which we've talked about before, is by far the best way to do that. And then, of course, you can go into the store, but if you go into the store, make sure it's when they're not busy. I would bring a print copy of your book, bring a print copy from Ingram Spark, not from KDP. I will tell you right now, if someone brings me a book, I can tell you in about 2 seconds who printed it. And so if I know that a book was printed from KDP and I'm a bookstore, then I know that it came from Amazon. And Amazon is he who shall not be named when you're in a retailer bookstore. So that's one thing to consider. If you want a full kind of training on how to pitch to bookstores and retails, the requirements, the discounts, and all of that stuff, I do have a masterclass available on the New Shelves website. It's like $20, but it's a full masterclass, and it also comes with book one sheet templates and some other things so that you're ready to go. So you can find that just by going to newshelves.com and going to the store, and that's available. And I'll also drop the link right in the chat for Zoom as well. I can find my Zoom screen. Yeah. There we go. All right. So hopefully that helps you out there, Bruce, and drive safely. But if you have more questions, you can always email them and we'll check it later. Yep, you've got it exactly, Richard. The 55% on Ingram Spark, because Ingram Spark is the printer, which is different than Ingram Wholesale. They are connected, they have the same names, but they're like cousins. They're not owned by the same exact entity. So Ingram Spark is the printer, Ingram Wholesale is the wholesaler who sells to retailers, bookstores, and different places. So when you put a 55% discount on Ingram Spark, 40% is passed on to the retailer, the person buying on Ingram. And then 15% is Ingram's fee for being that go-between and selling, having your book in their catalog. And that's how the breakdown works. So if you were going, and it's always 15%, or pretty much always 15% is their cut. So if you were to set your discount at a 40% discount on Ingram Spark, it would mean that the retailer's got a 25% discount instead of a 40%. So that's really important to consider. A lot of people think their book is set at a 40% discount on Ingram because it's a 40% discount on Ingram Spark. And then they go into a store or something like that, and the store says, nope, it's not discounted enough. And people are very confused, and that is why. So very important to know. All right, let me hop over to an emailed question. This question is about marketing on YouTube. So how effective is starting a YouTube channel to advertise your book series or planners if you want to educate your audience about planning, etc.? And would you suggest getting a videographer to get it started, or is there another way? So YouTube can be very effective. That was a total crack. YouTube can be very effective for certain genres. So, of course, we're thinking of YouTube for things like if it's fiction, we're thinking book trailers, we're even thinking audiobooks. A lot of authors make a big chunk of change on YouTube by getting a large number of subscribers and watch hours by putting up their full audiobooks on YouTube. So for people who have a non-exclusive agreement for their audiobooks, so it's non-exclusive anywhere, what they will do is they'll put it up on YouTube first and they'll put the entire book up for free. And there's an active audience over on YouTube who will listen to audiobooks. And because if you have 1,000 subscribers on YouTube and you have at least 4,000 watch hours over the course of a year, you can monetize. What happens is quite a few authors will do that. They'll put whole audiobooks out there and then they make quite a bit of money on their audiobooks because of YouTube listeners listening for free, and YouTube pays them for keeping them on the app. So that's one way that we think about using our audiobooks or our YouTube channel. Of course, trailers and things like that. But if you have a nonfiction book, you have a planner, you have a marketing guide, whatever it is, YouTube can be a great way to get the word out. Because if you have something to teach, then it's a great place. If you have short little tips, not only can you use short little videos that are 60 seconds or less on places like TikTok and Instagram and Facebook Reels, you can also use them as YouTube Shorts, which also can be monetized if you have enough views. And you can build an active audience there. You can do longer videos with specific planning or organization guides, whatever it may be. So it can be a great thing to do. If you're a nonfiction author who has maybe a book on trauma and you're teaching on different aspects of trauma, or you're maybe it's, I've seen it a lot, especially like on TikTok and Facebook, where people will kind of mimic different situations that people might be in and how to handle them, or just talking about how it could be hurtful, or, you know, how to stand up for yourself, how to speak well, argue well. I've seen it all. So there are a lot of ways that you can use. And what's great about YouTube is you don't need a videographer. Years ago, I would say yes, that people were looking for uber professional videos. But the truth is now is that people just want content, and something that looks too planned, something that looks too like you set it up. It's a videographer. It looks salesy and people don't necessarily relate to it as well. So I would not be investing in a videographer. I would be investing in a smartphone. You get a smartphone, you get a tripod, get a ring light. So I mean, smartphone's going to cost you, but the ring light and the tripod are not expensive. So you grab those two things for under 50 bucks. Maybe you get a better microphone, or you just use earbuds, something like that, completely up to you. And you just start recording yourself and putting it up on YouTube. So the good news is it's cheap to start and it's very easy to do. And also tripod and light ring are optional, but they sure do help. I will tell you, having a tripod and or different things, so you're not, you know, the big face in the phone, that's helpful. And absolutely can be effective if you use it and use it consistently. The other question was about book clubs. I've heard that they're great in getting to know your audience, but how do I access the book club world? Where do I get started and what do I need? I love book clubs because they are very, very likely to be an active audience. And also because you get a whole group reading your books and then they want to talk to you about it, which is great. The thing about book clubs is that you typically either have to be invited to them or you have to actively seek them out. The places you can find book clubs is libraries, bookstores. Many times those two will have their own book clubs. You can also find online book clubs. Sometimes you'll find them in like Facebook groups. You can find them on Reddit, but this actually takes some doing. It takes you searching them out and then trying to connect with them. I know there are some programs that say they'll push you out to book clubs. I haven't found those personally to be effective. I think it's much more effective to put together some marketing materials and to reach out, and also to use your own audience. If you have a mailing list, if you have a YouTube channel, if you have different things like that, saying, hey, I would love to speak at your book club. If you are a follower, if you love this, I mean, I do it here. I put it out there maybe not often enough, but I put it out there saying, if you ever have a writers group or an authors group, or you know of a conference that's looking for speakers, please feel free to let me know or put my name in the hat. I would love to connect with you in that way. So using your own followers and your own audience is a great way to do that. And as far as what do you need? Here's the thing is that if you're asking people to talk about your book for an hour, you need to give them something to talk about. So book club questions, discussion questions are super, super helpful. Or if your book lends itself to like a story time or a theme, having some kind of plan that you can pitch. So if you're a children's book author, having something where you can say, I would love to come for story time. Typically it takes about 45 minutes to an hour. We read a short story, we have a craft. And then I'm there to answer and talk to the kids. And I love to do that, or I'd love to come to the school. And if you have a nonfiction book, same thing. Like, what are you going to discuss? Do you have certain topics you can discuss? Do you have discussion questions? If it's a fiction book club, again, do you have discussion questions? Is it themed? Do you have a book that lends itself to a theme? I have one author I work with whose book really lent itself to marketing around the game of Clue. And so we kind of put it out there as like a ready-made game night mixed in with book club, where you can actually play Clue with the people who are there at the book club. But it's Clue that was all built off of the book. So the characters were book characters, the weapons and things were book from the book. But we actually made it as a printable game that people could print off and use for book clubs. So I think it's one of those things that you really have to connect, though, and build. And I will say, if you connect with a book club, make a spreadsheet, my friend, a Google sheet, don't care what it is. Keep those names. So when your next book comes out, you have someone to market to. Highly, highly recommend that. And book clubs are the ones who tend to be talking about books. They're the ones who tend to post on social media and share about your visit and different things like that. And I will say it's way more fun, in my experience, it's way more fun to go to a book club where an author is when everyone's already read the book than going to like a book signing event or something where you're sitting at a table and hoping people come by and talk to you. So that may be, if like your thing is not the book club events, if that kind of thing makes you nervous or you don't like it for whatever reason, then maybe book clubs would be more your speed, because it's more of an engaged audience who's excited to see you. And also book clubs can be in person or over Zoom, so that opens up some opportunities as well. So yes, I think book clubs are amazing. Can I publish a Spanish translation format of my book on KDP or Ingram Spark? And do I need a new Library of Congress number for the Spanish format? Yes, you can publish different language editions right on KDP or Ingram Spark. It is treated like a entirely new book though. So you would need to have an ISBN just for the Spanish translation. It would have its own book listing. It would not be connected to the English version on Amazon, but you can upload it directly. And yes, you do need a new Library of Congress number, PCIP block, whatever you're doing, because it is, again, considered as a completely different book. And yes, we know it's a translation, but as far as the metadata and everything's concerned, it's a new product. So you do have to have everything separate for that. So let me grab one of Terry's questions over here. Question here, do you have some Goodreads marketing suggestions? Sure. As far as Goodreads go, I know some authors who are super, super active over on Goodreads, and a lot of authors who are not super active, but they have it set up. So I'll kind of give you the lay of the land. On Goodreads, once you have a published book, you have a book up on a retail sales site, you can go claim your author profile on Goodreads. And I recommend that you do. I recommend you claim your author profile everywhere you can. But you do have to have a book published. So if it's not on pre-order, if it's not up on a retail site yet, you can't grab your author profile. You can grab a normal profile, but not a author profile. As far as marketing on Goodreads, there are opportunities right on Goodreads to upload videos. So if you are doing YouTube videos because you need a link, either I think it takes Vimeo, YouTube, and a couple others, but you need a link. to do it. And so you can upload videos. If you have a trailer on YouTube, you can upload it and it'll go up on your feed. You can do videos of just you talking about a book. You can do a video saying, hey guys, I'm available for book clubs and I'd love to see you, and do different things like that. So that's one way to be active on Goodreads. Another thing that you can do on Goodreads, and we've talked about it before, is Goodreads giveaways. And that is, as you have heard me say, I am sure, that is most effective when you run a Goodreads giveaway prior to the launch of the book. I don't necessarily recommend running a Goodreads giveaway after launch, but prior to launch, it's a great thing to get awareness and to maybe get some reviewers. So that's one thing that you can do. And I do recommend just the standard, which is $119, not the premium that's $5.99 for the giveaway. You can also actually be a reviewer. So commenting, liking, reviewing other books in your genre. Because what this does is people follow people on Goodreads, not just authors. They can follow other readers and reviewers. And what happens is that if you're an active reader and reviewer in your genre, people will start to like your reviews. They will start to interact with your reviews, and then they will probably start to follow your profile. And because you write what you're reviewing, you write in the same genre you're reviewing, they are likely to see your books and actually get your updates when you upload a new book and when you connect there. So that's something you can do. I will say this is one of those fine edge things where you want to review books honestly. You do not want to say this is the best book ever if it wasn't good, because people will call you out on Goodreads. They take off the gloves. So you don't want to do that. But as an author, you do want to be very careful about leaving critical reviews or things you didn't like. So I have seen sometimes where people will say, this book was well written. It wasn't my favorite trope, and then just not leave a star rating. Even that can be a little dicey. I usually say for authors publicly talking about other books or authors, we go by the rule of if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all, not publicly anyway. But that's one way that you can connect with reviewers and things there. So those are just some of the ways that you can connect to people on Goodreads. It is free, well, giveaways are not free, but everything else is free. And there are also a ton of discussion groups and threads and things. So you can find your genre on Goodreads and start interacting in discussion. But I will say it's very much like social media in that you will get out what you put in. So if you don't have a lot of time for Goodreads, stick to the basic videos, stick to the giveaways, because otherwise you will end up spending quite a bit of time on Goodreads kind of building a community there. But it can be an amazing community, especially depending on your genre. Let's see. Speaking of translations, is it better to have languages in both languages in the same book, or each book only in the other? I'm not sure exactly what you're asking, but I think you're asking if you should have one book with both languages in it. And typically, no, it would be two separate products. You wouldn't have like one book that has English first, then Spanish. You would have just separate editions under different translations. And traditionally published books do that all the time, where they have the book that might be published in English and then they sell the Spanish translation, the German translation, and so on and so forth. And those typically actually have different publishers because they sell the translation rights, and then the different publishers will go on and publish, and they may have a book cover that looks the same. It may be completely different. They may change some of the characters even sometimes, depends on the translation agreement. All right. What are considerations if I want to publish under a pseudonym or a pen name? Um, my friend Amy Collins, I think, said it best, is that if you are going to publish under a pen name, think of it like raising a child. You are going to have to take care of that child. You're going to have to, be with that child for the entirety of your career. So when you're picking a pen name, just keep in mind that that becomes your persona. So you then need to have social media for that persona. You need to have accounts for that persona. You need to be connected in that way. But also, I think it's important to think of why. What's the reasoning behind having a pen name? Because we have what I call a open pen name and a closed pen name. A closed pen name is something because you don't want people to know it's you. Like I am writing, I don't know, I'm writing spicy books over here under, well, I can't tell you because it's a secret. And maybe that's your pen name and you want it separate. You don't want your job, your kids to know that you are this author. So you have a pen name to keep it secret and as separate as possible. So that's one reason to have a pen name. And it's legitimate for some people. It makes a lot of sense. And they are willing to do the extra work of having multiple social media accounts and different names to, different emails and all sorts of things. And if that works for you and there's a reason behind that extra work, go for it. The other reason people might have a pen name is because they're writing in different genres. In a world where 60% of print books are bought directly from Amazon and anywhere between 85 and 91% of ebooks are bought on Amazon. So with that knowledge of how much is digital, ebooks, audiobooks, they're all online now. Algorithms really matter. So if you are writing children's books as Keri Barnum, and then you're also going to write young adult books, it doesn't even have to be like spicy or anything, just children's picture books. And then I'm also writing teen books. Many people will choose to use a pseudonym or a pen name to split the algorithm. And yes, it still means having two different author accounts and many times two different social media because it's a different audience set. Yeah, it's still kids, parents, and grandparents and teachers buying, but they're looking for different things. And so sometimes people will split those to help the algorithm so that they don't have their books getting confused and their children's books showing to a young adult audience who's not going to buy them, and their young adult books going to a children's book audience. If you're writing nonfiction and fiction, the same thing can happen. If you're writing nonfiction about organization and how to organize your house, and then you're writing science fiction, then may some of your readers cross over? Absolutely. However, you're really going to confuse the algorithms because what happens in today's world with algorithms and bots and all of those things that who your audience is, who interacts with your profiles, with your books, it trains those algorithms who to show your books to. So when we train the algorithms well and we keep that organization nonfiction separate from our science fiction, our ads will work better. We'll organically get more traffic. We will not confuse the reader who's like, man, I was looking for this person, but I thought they wrote science fiction. All I see is planning books. So that can be a reason for writing under a pen name. But like I said, especially if it's a closed pen name. An open pen name, by the way, is where I would say something like, oh, hey, by the way, I write children's fiction under Keri Barnum, and I write young adult fiction under K Barnum. I split them just for my audiences. So that is where I'm not telling people. I might even go onto my newsletter or my social media and say something like, hey, did you know I also write under this pen name for these books or this genre? So that is an open pen name. And it's still two accounts. It's still two author profiles. It's still kind of two personas that you have to take care of. However, it's not a secret, which makes it easier. But if you have a closed pen name, you don't want anyone to know it's you. It's like living a double life sometimes online anyway. I mean, it means having different profiles and all of those things. So going back to, taking care of that kid for as long as you write books, that's kind of the idea, is that if you start out with a pen name, you're pretty much stuck with it forever. So that's the considerations I tend to look at when someone asks me if a pen name makes sense. And sometimes I encourage people to take a pen name, and sometimes it doesn't make sense. So it just depends. Let's see. Is it worthwhile to run Facebook or Meta ads in the UK? My book is available there on Amazon, but I believe not in bookstores. So I always say, if you think it might sell well in the UK, try running, sure, Facebook ads in the UK. I would start running ads specifically to like an Amazon sales platform or something that's specific to the UK. So rather than just sending them to your website, send them to amazon.co.uk to your specific book and see how it works. I do think that tastes change. So what is popular here in the US may not be popular in the UK and vice versa. So I think that sometimes matters. I will also say that outside of the US, the UK still buys a lot of books from Amazon, but outside of the US and UK, a lot of people buy books outside of Amazon. So that's something to consider as well. Like, is your book available on Kobo? If you're advertising to like Australia, you might do better with Kobo ads than running something to Amazon. So I think that you don't know until you try. It's usually worth a shot, but think about your content. So for example, I have a client who writes historical fiction that is solely based in the US. It's based around US historical fiction. Doesn't sell very well in the UK. It's not to say someone in the UK can't read about US history. It's just not something that pops up as a major interest for them as often as it does here in the US. So thinking about those kind of things, but then give yourself a budget, give it a try and see how it works. I will say I have some books that have done very well over in the UK, things that are maybe a little bit more gritty noir thrillers have done very well over in the UK. A lot of romance or women's fiction has done well in the UK. So it just depends on the book. Does a blurb need to be absolutely accurate? One was written for me that I find too sensational for my style, but could that work? Um, Depends on what you mean by accurate. So, sensational, part of marketing is creating drama. And so that's something to consider. If it was written for you and it is maybe a little bit more dramatic than you would have written it, it may work. But if it's not true, if it's saying that there is a love story in your book and there's not a love story, if it's saying there is a fight to the death and there's no fight to the death, then you're setting readers' expectations up to not be met. And that's going to turn into poor reviews because what we don't want to do, it's fine to sensationalize a book in the sense of making it exciting, driving that sale, and hyping it up. That I'm totally okay with. What I'm not okay with is a bait and a switch. So we don't want to tell people that there's something in the book that it's not. If we say it's a fast-paced thriller and it's more of actually a slow-paced drama, we're setting the reader's expectations to not be met. We're setting ourselves up for failure. So you might get a sale, but you're probably going to get disgruntled readers, you're going to get poor reviews and things like that. So those are the things I would be looking for. And I will say there are many times when I work with authors on their blurbs and things where I'm like, it needs to be more exciting. We need, like, what about this? And sometimes they're like, well, that's a little more blah than I was thinking of. And again, is it true? I always say, is there anything in here that's not true? Because if it's not true, it needs to be changed. So that's kind of what I would be thinking of first. For an audiobook, is ACX exclusive worth it over Findaway Voices? Do most sales come from Audible and Apple anyway? At the moment, I would say last time I looked at audiobook stats that most sales did come from Findaway Voices or I'm sorry, most sales did come from Audible and Apple at the moment. However, there are a lot of audiobook retailers that are kind of giving them a run for their money. Spotify has their new programs and they're starting to take part of the pie. Kobo has part of it, and libraries are a big part. Like Overdrive will often be a big part of sales for audiobooks. So I think that's a very personal answer. It does depend on the genre. If you go exclusive through ACX for Apple and Audible, then you do get a higher royalty. You get a 40% royalty instead of 25% royalty, which for some people makes a difference, but it does limit you because you can't use it anywhere else. Like I said, actually, a lot of authors are making a killing by going non-exclusive on Audible and putting their book up on YouTube. So it depends on what you are going to do with your book if you don't have it exclusive. Through Findaway Voices or Authors Republic, you get into Chirp Books. Chirp Books is connected to BookBub for their Chirp Books does the discount audiobooks. And I have seen literally thousands of sales for audiobooks over on that platform for a couple of clients who use it and who have gotten deals. So I don't think there's necessarily a right or wrong to each one. I think it's a lot like Kindle Unlimited, kind of what is your book about? How much of the market is over on Audible opposed to other places? And also, if you're not going to go exclusive, what are you doing with the book outside of Audible, Amazon, iTunes? If you're using it, then exclusive may not be worth it. But if you're not using it, then maybe it is. Just depends. Good. I'm so glad. All right, let's see. I know I had another question in my email. Oop, not that one. Here we go. When is the best time to publish a fiction book? Um, there's not necessarily one best time. I will say that publishing houses tend to publish books in the spring and the fall. That's the most popular. Um, I think that it just depends again on the genre and the type of book. So, for example, women's fiction and romance, the sales increase over summertime. So, if you have a women's fiction or a romance book, I would consider trying to get it out in early spring so it's out for summertime. But what's to say if you put it out in April or if you put it out in August, it could still sell. It's just when you put it out with kind of sales trends in mind, you have time to build up reviews and things so that when you're in the peak of the sales trend, or that moment when sales are likely to be higher, that you've kind of established yourself, you've got ads running and things like that. So a lot of print books, especially 40% of print books are sold in November, December, and January. So does that mean every book should be published in November? Absolutely not. Um, no. So what genre is it? Is it giftable? Because if books are being bought, most of the time it's because it's giftable. Is it a standalone book or novel or thriller that someone might gift to someone? Is it a cookbook or a tabletop book or a children's or teens book? Those are being gifted. So in that case, I would strongly recommend that you get a book out prior to November if that is your book and you're hoping to meet that sales season. And in that case, I would actually say try to publish a couple months earlier, like September at the latest, so you can start building up reviews and get ads running for that sales season. But again, I don't think there's a bad time to publish. I will say that there are times where you might be overwhelmed by other things happening. So, given the choice, I do not recommend that you publish a book within a couple weeks before or after an election, simply because SEO, algorithms, people's attention are strongly divided. And so you probably will not be noticed as much when you launch. So I typically don't recommend that. I don't recommend that you publish a book around certain holidays. For example, like I said that we have reading holidays and we have drinking holidays or eating holidays. So for example, Easter is a eating holiday. That's when people are busy. They're with their kids, they're things like that. They're not necessarily going online to buy books. However, over Christmas break, when people are off for a couple of weeks, or spring break is when people are going to be home and looking for something to do. So that matters for sure, I think, as well. And then always think ahead, whatever season you're trying to hit. If you have a kid's book that centers around Halloween, you want your book to come out 2 months prior to Halloween because people are not buying the book on Halloween. They're buying the book a month before Halloween, maybe a couple days before Halloween, but they're not buying it on Halloween. If you have a book that's set in the winter time and your cover has a beautiful snowy landscape, then you want that book to come out in September so that people tend to like read by the season. That's not to say we don't read Christmas books in March, but we certainly kind of amp up and like get in the spirit and get cozy with wintry books. I will tell you that as I am looking forward to spring and I cannot wait for warmer weather. I'm not necessarily looking for snowy or winter books. I'm kind of over it. You cannot make snow romantic to me at the moment. It's just sadness. And so those are the things I would consider about I set up audiobooks through Amazon's free AI platform by invitation. If I put them on YouTube, is that going to raise red flags on Amazon? So you cannot put those on YouTube. The Amazon digital voice audiobook that they have available is something that's exclusive to Audible. So the agreement that you make with Amazon and KDP when you use the virtual voice feature is that they will create a AI narrated audiobook for you, but it will only sell on Audible. You're not allowed to use it anywhere else. You don't have the rights to it. Now you can make your own audiobook, like with spoken narration, and you can put that up on YouTube as far as I know, but you cannot use their virtual voice audiobook. That is against the agreement you enter with them. I am wondering about setting the royalty rate for ebooks on KDP, 35% or 70%, and why would I take less? And that's a really good question. So, as far as setting up an ebook on KDP, you have the choice of picking your royalty, 35% or 70%. And I often get asked, why would I choose a 35% royalty when I can get a 70%? So here is why. To make that 70% royalty, your book has to be priced at $2.99 or higher. If you have a book discount deal, like let's say you're running an ebook deal where your book is free or 99 cents or whatever it may be, you can only make the 35% royalty. Once your book is priced at $2.99 or higher, you can make the 70% royalty. So if your book is priced over $2.99, you absolutely want to choose the 70% royalty. If it's lower, then obviously you have to do the 35%. The other reason why people might take the 35% royalty is that when you take the higher royalty rate, you have to pay a delivery fee for your book. Now, for most novels and things that don't have huge files, it's change. It's like 50 cents. So no big deal. I'd much rather, okay, you guys know me in math, so let's try to do this. We'll say a ebook is $10. The highest you can set on KDP is $9.99. But for the sense of math, we're going to do $10. So if I have a $10 book and I can choose 35% royalty, which is going to be $3.50, or 70% royalty, which is going to be $7, I would be a moron to take the lower percentage, right? Even if there's a delivery fee, if I have a novel and my delivery fee for that novel is 50 cents, well, 650 still beats 350. I'm not good at math, but I know that much. But there is a caveat. If my ebook is set at $9.99, but maybe it's a cookbook or it's a children's picture book, or it is something that has big images and it's a big file, sometimes that delivery fee is more. It's depending on the file size and how big it is. So sometimes that delivery fee can be $2. So still at $10, it would be worth it to pay the delivery fee and take the 70%. But if my book is priced at, let's say, $2.99 and the delivery fee is $3, I'd rather take the 35% and pay no delivery fee than make nothing because the delivery fee is as much as I'm charging for the book. So that is where you might take the lower royalty when you're over that $2.99 price point. And it's like there on Amazon, like the explanation, but it is kind of hidden. And so I get why a lot of people are confused by that. And I will say that if you have recently run a price promotion, actually everyone, you should all go onto KDP and you should just check your royalty rate because I cannot tell you how many people I've worked with who had a discount promotion or they did something where the ebook was discounted and it made them go to 35% royalty. And then when they increased the rate, they didn't increase their royalty and they ended up making a lot of sales, or maybe it's been a year and they were getting a lower royalty the entire time. And I know that can be painful. Let's see, does KDP offer a floating royalty? That is, can I start with a low price at 35 cents and have KDP automatically upgrade me to 70% when I reprice it at $2.99 or more? So you can change your price and your royalty pretty much anytime you want in the KDP dashboard. The thing is, it's not automatic. So when you price over $2.99, it does not automatically raise the royalty to 70%. You actually have to click on that button. So it is very important that you look at the royalty. It's like a little button. It's got the choice for 35% or 70%. So it's very important that when you're changing the price for your ebook, you look at that and you choose the appropriate one. So if it's $2.99, make sure you click 70%, and then you have to hit publish on your book for both that price and that royalty rate to go live. So if you haven't looked in a while, if you've done a discount and whatever it may be, highly recommend you go into KDP, you check your royalty rate to make sure that you don't have, a $9.99 ebook that you've been selling and only get 35% royalty on instead of 70, because that adds up. Again, not great at math, but even I can figure that one out. And so I've absolutely worked with authors who are like, that was literally $1,000 over a year and I had no clue. So that's one of the things that you should check. Yeah, it is one of those things. So, all right, everybody, I think we answered all of your questions for today. I did want to remind you, I know I said it before the call, but I will not be here next week. It's spring break and we are taking a break. So I will not be here next Friday. We will have no Free Advice Friday on, I should have a calendar here so I know which day it is. I think it's the 5th. So we will not have Free Advice Friday on April the 5th, but we will be back on April 12th. We will have a special guest. We will have Bob Eckstein, who is a brilliant cartoonist. He has so much experience in the publishing industry, and he has agreed to come and hang out with us. We're going to talk about not just cartoon things, but publishing. We're going to talk to someone who's been in the publishing industry for years as publishing has changed. He has worked as an illustrator, a creative director, and he's really been in the publishing industry for a long time. And so we are going to just chat with him about some of the changes, what used to be, what's upcoming. And also, I'm sure he'll slip in a joke or two because that is who Bob is. So join us for that. Thank you for being here. I always enjoy you. If you have questions you'd like to ask Bob and I for the 12th, email them in info@newshelves.com and I'll save them up and we'll answer them then. Otherwise, we'll see you on the 12th at 10 a.m. Eastern. Bye, everybody. Have a lovely break. Bye-bye.